When I landed my first job after finishing school, I was short on cash. I had to shift to a different town, so I started searching for someone to share a house with. Times were tough, so I quickly posted an ad mentioning I was on the lookout for a housemate. I didn't have to wait long. I went with the first dude who reached out to me, and together we got ourselves an apartment. His name was Mike. The first time I met Mike, he seemed like any other guy you'd meet on the street. We were pretty much the same age. Mike was friendly enough, although he was the silent type. Still, I didn't sense any red flags and believed we would get along just fine. Our new home was on the 4th level of a building with 6 floors. It was a cozy place with 2 sleeping rooms, one on each side of the corridor. We also had a washroom, a kitchen space for cooking, and a shared space for hanging out and watching TV. In the beginning, I was swamped with job stuff and didn't interact with Mike that much. He preferred staying in his space, keeping the door closed. I respected his privacy. Whenever our paths crossed, like when grabbing a snack from the kitchen, I'd try to strike up a chat. Mike, however, wasn't too chatty. He would give short answers and avoid sharing too much about his personal life. I was pretty chill about it. As long as Mike paid his part of the monthly bills and kept our place tidy, I had nothing to gripe about. That's why one particular night, around a month after we had moved in together, I was jolted awake at some ungodly hour. Rubbing my eyes, I was startled to see Mike standing near my room's entrance. Our eyes met. "Mike?" I asked, voice groggy. He took his sweet time, staring at me for what felt like forever before finally speaking up. He muttered something about wondering if I was asleep and inquired if I had any earphones he could use. I informed him I didn't own a pair and watched as he turned around and headed back to his room. It took a while for the unease to leave me, but eventually, sleep took over once more. I brushed the incident off as a one-off, thinking Mike was just being Mike. Nothing too out of the ordinary, right? But then, just a handful of nights later, I had another unexpected wake-up call. This time my eyes shot open to find Mike already inside my space. Heart pounding, I observed him quietly leave and walk back to his part of the apartment. I don't think he noticed me watching. Despite the shock, exhaustion won out and my eyes drifted shut again. About 7 days after the last strange incident, I was in my bed, not yet asleep, but getting there. My door, which was always firmly shut, began to inch open, and in strolls Mike, like he owns the place. I squinted into the dark, trying to make out his face. Since my room was bathed in darkness, I wasn't sure if Mike realized I was still awake. My voice shaky, I asked, "Mike, why are you in here?" He seemed shocked that I was still awake, hesitating for a bit. Then weirdly he walked over to where I keep my freshly laundered clothes. Mumbling something about mistakenly thinking I'd taken some of his socks, he started rummaging through my clothes. His reasons sounded fishy, but I said, "Okay, take a look if you want." After what felt like ages, he gave up and left my room. The following morning, I decided it was time to have a chat with Mike. I wanted to know why he kept wandering into my room during odd hours. But when I brought it up, he acted clueless, claiming he'd only come in once. Feeling frustrated, I said, "Mike, I've seen you in there multiple times." Yet, he stuck to his story. This made me second-guess my hasty decision of picking him as a roommate. Hoping our talk had settled things, I was relieved when weeks passed without any weird late-night visits. Peace at last. However, this calm didn't last long. One fateful night, I was jolted awake to find Mike standing right over my bed, looking down at me. Both of us were taken aback. He seemed as startled as I was, and he sprinted out of my room. That was it for me. I knew I had to move out. For the time being, I thought of getting locks for my door for some added security. Yet, when morning came, Mike was nowhere to be seen. His room, which was always shut tight, was now wide open and completely empty. I had never really snooped around his space, but curiosity got the better of me. There was absolutely nothing left. Thinking he might have gone on a trip or something, I tried calling him. No response. I even sent him a couple of texts, but still, silence. I decided to do some online digging, trying to find any trace of him on social platforms. But Mike seemed to have vanished from the digital world. Oddly, he kept sending in his share of the rent until our lease was up. Despite my many attempts to reach out and find out where he'd disappeared to, Mike remained a mystery. I never did see him after that day. Tom was my first college roommate. We both started college at a big school in Ohio. The school picked Tom to be my roommate, and right from the start I thought he was a bit weird. It wasn't anything super weird, just small things about how he talked and moved made me feel he was different. But hey, I'm a friendly guy, so I chatted with him sometimes. It was easy for me to make friends. After a few weeks, I had a bunch of pals I'd spend time with. We'd watch movies, play games, and just hang out. But Tom, well, he didn't really go out much. He mostly stayed in our room. The only times I saw him leave were when he had to go to class. I felt kind of bad for him, so I asked him many times if he wanted to come and hang out with my buddies and me. He always said no. Every time I'd get ready to leave our room, Tom would always ask the same questions. Where are you going? How long will you be out? At first I thought he was just curious. But after a while, it felt more like he was checking up on me, like an older brother would do. Still, I didn't want to be rude, so if I knew I'd be out late, I'd let him know. One afternoon, I was alone in the room. Tom was in one of his classes. I was thirsty, so I drank some water from a bottle. When I finished, just for fun, I tried to throw the empty bottle across the room into the trash bin. I missed. The bottle flew towards Tom's side and rolled under his bed. I bent down to pick up my bottle, but something else caught my attention. There was a box half covered by another box under his bed, and I saw some photos peeking out of it. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. I was curious. I moved the top box and opened the one with the pictures. At first, I thought the pictures were of his family or friends, but they weren't. They were pictures of students from our school. All the pictures looked like they were taken secretly. Many pictures seemed to be taken from our room's window, which looked out at the school. There were so many photos, and some people had more than one photo taken. The photos were zoomed in, showing they were taken from far away. The weirdest part? I found a picture of me in that box, taken while I was walking around the school. I got scared and put everything back as I found it and went back to my side of the room. Later, when he came back, he started using his computer. After a bit, he looked at me and asked if I touched his stuff. I told him about the bottle, but didn't say anything about the pictures. He looked a bit mad, but didn't say much else. That night, like usual, I told him I was going out with friends and would be back by 11. It was Friday, so my friends and I lost track of time. I was at my buddy's place when I saw a message from him on my phone. It was 11:10 p.m., and he was asking where I was. I told him I'd be back soon. His reply was strange. He said he had a surprise for me. He was never the type to joke, so that message made me feel nervous. I went back to our room, but as soon as I opened the door, he tried to jump at me. I was super scared and shut the door fast, then ran. He didn't come after me. Not knowing what to do, I called the school's security. They came quickly. I stayed with my friend for the night and later heard that when the security went in, he tried to attack them too. The real police had to come, and they took him away. After that, I got to stay in the room all by myself for the rest of the school year. This is a story about when I was in university. I chose a school that was far from my home. I used a popular website to find someone to share a room with at the school. Her name was Lucy, and by chance we were studying the same thing. We were both girls who really liked pets. We even joked about bringing a small dog to our room without telling anyone. Online, we got along so well, but in person, she was a bit off. She didn't seem as friendly as before, but it wasn't a big problem. After a few weeks, things started to feel better between us. Lucy was more like the friend I thought she was. One Friday evening, about 4 weeks after we started school, Lucy said she was going to a fun gathering and asked if I wanted to join. I said yes, thinking it would be fun. We decided to walk because the place was close, just a few streets away. But when we got to the house, it was super quiet. I thought maybe it was a quiet gathering so we wouldn't get in trouble. But when Lucy unlocked the door and we went inside, it was really empty. The house looked old and not very well taken care of. I turned to Lucy, puzzled, and asked her where everyone was. Lucy said the get-together was downstairs and told me to head there. But she paused, saying she needed to send a text to her friend. I made my way to the basement, following a set of steep stairs that bent in a strange direction. I could faintly hear some tunes, but when I reached the bottom and looked around, the basement was almost pitch black. I could just make out a guy standing not too far from me. I got scared, spun around, and dashed up the stairs as fast as I could. I heard footsteps coming after me. I reached the top and found the door was shut. Quickly, I flung it open, closed it behind me, and raced out of the house. Lucy saw me sprinting and joined in without asking why. We didn't stop running until we reached our dorm room. Breathless, I told her what I saw. Lucy looked shocked and said she got the address mixed up. I wanted to call the police, but then thought, what if it was just a misunderstanding? We had entered someone else's home after all. But as days went on, something felt off. I began to wonder if Lucy had tricked me. Then, just 2 days after the creepy encounter, Lucy said she was moving to another room because she wanted her own space. She packed her bags and left. Even though the school wasn't that big, I never bumped into her again. To this day, I feel like she might have been involved in that strange night. Some things just didn't line up. The closed door when I tried to escape, her sending me to the basement first, and her sudden move. Maybe I'm wrong, but it does make me wonder.